I know.
He checked into a motel on November 22nd, paying cash in advance, but on the day he was scheduled to check out, there's no sign of him. All of his belongings were in his room except for his hunting gear, so it was assumed he must have gone out on a hunt and just never came back. A search team in helicopters was fairly quickly able to locate his abandoned truck in a wilderness area along the Missouri River, but there was no sign of the missing man. Eerily, the truck contained only his empty rifle case and, oddly, his boots. What happened to Theis and why did he go out without his boots on? No trace of him has ever been found. He was declared legally dead in 2011.
Well, you can kind of see why they would declare him dead, given the fact that there was no sign of him and...
Now, in October of 2004, 31-year-old Jeremy Childress was at Trask Mountain in Tillamook County, Oregon, on an elk hunting excursion, along with his co-worker Shane Louie and Louie's son Shane Jr. On October 17th, they spent the day out hunting, and that evening they made a trip down the mountain to collect firewood for the night. However, on the way back, they encountered a sudden thick bank of fog that confused them and they got lost. They were in the truck and drove around for a while looking for their camp, but they could not find it. After several hours of making their way through the fog, Childress told his companions that he believed the camp to be past a particular stand of trees they passed. Louie and his son stayed behind while Childress made his way through into the mist to confirm that it was their camp. He was supposed to come back and let him know what he found. Hours later, they'd never seen him. The last time they saw him was when he melted into the fog. It was the last time they ever saw him. Louie and son drove around hoping to find him, eventually finding the camp in the process, which was on the other side of the trees, as Childress had said, but there was no sign of the missing hunter other than a discarded gum wrapper. When the fog was cleared and the area was searched, there was no trace of the man. And in September of 2004, a hunter and a member of the Crow Nation Indian Reservation by the name of Robert Springfield was out bow hunting for elk in the Bighorn Mountains of Montana, along with his son and cousin.
Mm-hmm.
On September 19th, they're at a place called Black Canyon. Such a lovely name for a place.
Well, sure.
Now, this is land that was owned by the tribe, and everything seemed to be going fine. During the day, the hunters decided to split up after settling on a rendezvous point, promising to meet back there in the late afternoon. They were all experienced outdoorsmen and hunters, very familiar with the land. So there was nothing at all to worry about at that time. However, Springfield never returned, and after several hours, he was reported as missing. A massive search was launched with helicopters using infrared cameras and tracker dogs. The Bureau of Indian Affairs, the Bighorn County Sheriff's Office, all of them scouring the wilderness, but nothing could be found. It would not be until October of 2005, over a year later, that a group of native hunters was in the area when they came across a crow causing a commotion and squawking incessantly in a tree to the point that the men just went to go check it, if not only to shoo the crow away. When they got there, they were met with the macabre sight of a human skull and some other bones in a pile at the base of the tree, just under the shrieking bird.
Yep.
Strangely, next to the human skull and some other bones was found a neatly rolled up belt and two boots carefully set there next to each other, as well as a wallet stuffed with cash and a men's coat with a small tear in it.
Well, geez, these guys are neat, aren't they?
That's all that was ever found in the missing Springfield.
Why
So
would
far-
anyone take a bunch of cash on a nature walk?
Because he's a Native American? I don't know. Because he had it in his wallet and he just put his wallet in his pocket because I would?
Yeah, you're smart enough not to go hang out in the wilderness, so...
Okay, Melissa, not so much.
Now, the setting for this case is the Crazy Mountains, which is in the northern part of the Rocky Mountains. Again, we're in Montana. And this case is as weird as the John Doe case, the 3.5-year-old kid case, if you want my honest opinion. We're dealing with a gentleman by the name of Joseph Hedges. He was out on a hunting trip with his friends Greg Letmer and Joe Depew. It started on September 3rd when the group headed from the Cottonwood Lake trailhead along with 2 horses and a mule. They were in good spirits, they were looking forward to their hunt, and things were going pretty smoothly as they headed towards a place called Campfire Lake. But they hit an obstacle when their mule got spooked and Hedges' sleeping bag was thrown over the trail and lost. Now, that's an unfortunate turn of events, but these guys hunted here all the time. And the previous year, they had loaded up with emergency gear and extra supplies just in case they ever needed it, and they hit it and geocached it.
Mm-hmm. Okay.
So he just went, well, fine, I'm going to go to this geocache of supplies we have.
Mm-hmm.
I'm going to grab another sleeping bag. I'll meet up with you later. The last time they ever saw him.
I see.
This is why you don't go on your own.
Yes, exactly. The buddy system is a thing. People work with us.
Well, here's the thing. Nobody was worried because he's an experienced outdoorsman. He had a walkie-talkie, a cell phone, was armed with a gun and a bow. So what was there to worry about?
But I don't care if you're not worried. I do not care. If you have heard things, like crazy things like ghosts, stuff like that, I wouldn't just trust the wilderness like that. I don't care if you have a gun. I don't care if you have a knife. Not just people live in this world. And not just animals live in this world either.
Well, night came and went. No sign of Hedges turning up. The next day, he still did not turn up. The group tried numerous times to call him on his walkie-talkie, but there was no response.
Uh-huh.
A look at the GPS for the walkie-talkie system showed that Hedges had missed the fork in the trail that he was supposed to take to his destination, and it labeled his position as being out at the very edge of the screen. They waited around the area for several more days, hoping that he would find his way back to them, but there was no further word. And he was finally reported missing on September 8th, an important day.
Yes, it is.
Oh, is that Dad's birthday?
Yes, it is.
The surroundings were meticulously scoured using helicopters with infrared equipment, sheriffs on horseback, 20 tracker dog teams, all of which turned up no sign of the missing hunter. It was not until the second day of the search that a clue was finally found. By a creek just east of Sunlight Lake was found a spot where someone had attempted to start a fire using a pack of cigarettes. And nearby were found the water bladder that Hedges had been carrying, the waist straps of his backpack, and his shoes sat down neatly side by side as if they'd been carefully removed and placed there. Now, oddly, this was found a site that search teams had just combed the previous day without finding a thing. And it was also considered puzzling that he would have taken off his shoes and just left them behind, considering the plummeting temperatures and snow. Not to mention, outside, sticks, rocks, not a good place to be barefoot.
Well, yeah, generally.
Also unusual was that tracker dogs passing through were unable to pick up a scent for the missing man. Now, in June of 2015, a hiker by the name of Roger Beslinovich was staying with relatives at a place called the Rain Anchor Ranch when he took a walk to the top of a nearby ridge and came across someone's outdoor gear, including a backpack containing a cell phone, an orange hunting vest, a bow, clothes, a hunting license, and some scattered wrappers from granola bars. Bizarrely, at the head of the ridge was also a thermos cup placed upon a rock, along with an open energy drink nearby. Now, where that was, he could have seen the ranch from there. He would have had to seen the ranch from there. And when they examined the hunting and driver's license, they did indeed belong to Hedges. The authorities jumped all over the new lead in the cold pig case, but they still found no sign of him.
Uh-huh.
The following summer, about a half mile from where the gear had been found, a group of people from the ranch who were on a hiking trip saw a skull just off the trail. A trail that people were on all the time.
So it seemed a little odd that someone would just now, a year later, be finding the skull. Is that what you're saying?
Right. And what was left of his body was found just off of this trail. And I mean, there's, like I said, this isn't a tyro. This is an experienced guy. How did he miss the turnoff when it was clear and there wasn't any fog or any unexpected weather?
Right.
You know, how did he miss the turnoff where the cache was supposed to be? Now, this next thing comes from Reddit because we have a tiny little section of the 411 area here in Missouri.
Wow.
Now again, comes from Reddit, so I cannot address the veracity of what I'm about to read. My dad was a coon hunter and owned several dogs and had many friends that hunted with him. This happened probably at some point in the 60s. He said one night, him and a buddy took their dogs on a late-night coon hunt.
Question.
What?
What's a coon?
Raccoon?
Raccoon.
Yes, raccoon.
I thought a coon was an actual word. A different word.
Nope. Coon's a raccoon.
Coon's a raccoon.
Yeah. Now, there's a small conservation area about 5 miles from our house with picnic tables and primitive campsites. A natural spring runs through the area, and it's just a beautiful place. Dad used to hunt from that area all the time. He said they let their dogs out and were sitting on the tailgate of the truck listening to them run. They had just treed a coon, and him and his buddy were walking to where they were. Now, these are highly trained dogs who knew to stay at the tree and not to leave until people get there. Well, they got to the tree, they leashed up the dogs, because the dogs will chase a raccoon up into a tree, and then the hunters come along and they just shoot the raccoon where it is, because otherwise the raccoon will go from tree to tree, and that's why you take the dogs. They keep it there, ideally.
Yeah.
So when they started leashing up the dogs started to whine, whimper, and cower, which is completely out of character for the dogs. His dad's big male hound cowered down and took off, breaking the hold Dad had on him. He said they heard a noise like none of them had ever heard before. And these guys lived in the Missouri woods all their lives. He said it was a growling noise, and they could hear footsteps circling them. They both had flashlights and were trying to see whatever it was, but it kept out of the light. They started to hear it chattering, like something talking to itself, and continued stalking them. He took his gun out and shot into the air a couple times, and the stalking and chattering stopped briefly. While it stopped, they gathered their dogs and started to make their way back to the truck, and then they heard the chattering and the footsteps again. Mm-hmm. It took them 2 hours to get from where they were to the trucks, which is weird because that area is only 30 to 45 minutes away at most. They never told, his dad never told anybody else other than his mom the night it happened, and she said it was the only time the man had looked scared.
Ever in his childhood?
So, want my honest opinion? Missouri's a weird place. I'm not sure that fits in with 411, but I had to include it because Missouri. Now, in the state of New Mexico, we're going to investigate the case of Audrey Kaplan, and we're going to wrap up here. But there are plenty more cases. David has written no less than 8 books and probably more on cases all over the U.S. and the world. This is not an isolated thing.
Should we ask them if we should do a second episode of this?
Sure. If you guys want us to look up more of these cases, I'm happy to. So just let us know.
Yeah, just let us know on Twitter.
Now, the state of New Mexico near Santa Fe, there's a diverse environment of desert, mountains, and rivers, and they all converge to create a number of conditions for missing person possibilities. Audrey Kaplan was hiking and well-equipped for survival if need be, was reported lost. Now, New Mexico, like many states, has a disclosure agreement that any case that occurs will be released to the public so that all